Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be dueling against a witch doctor called Pillz. He's a witch doctor with, although he's low Paragon level, he's actually pretty geared. He has 130, 135 to 150k HP depending on his setup. Typically whether he uses a mojo or a shield for DPS versus EHP. But in general he has about 150k HP and 150k DPS. So just as a reference, I have 100k HP. My all resist is 400, and my DPS unbuffed with an SOJ is 146k. So you roughly need about 400 all resist as well as 100k HP to survive 150k DPS from a witch doctor. If they have about 200 250k DPS, it gets a little bit more tricky. You have to stack a little bit more resists. But in general, it's okay to have about 450 in my opinion against witch doctors. Okay, so I got a snipe there. That was a quick 1-0, but we're going to experiment throughout this video a few builds, and I'm going to show you a few builds that I use and a few builds that he tried out that might not have worked. And I also have a few suggestions if you're watching this and you're a witch doctor against demon hunters. The first thing I want to point out is that if you check out my skill bar, I use Mark for Death. And if you're a demon hunter, please don't use Mark for Death against witch doctors. That was a really dumb mistake on my part. I thought maybe I should do a little bit more DPS, but I realized that Spirit Walk actually cancels Mark for Death, so there's no point in casting Mark for Death. And not only that, but you're also trying to like click on the witch doctor through all of the summons and stuff. So that was a really bad choice. And here I actually realized that yeah, Mark is no good. I shouldn't use Mark. He got a kill off me, but fair enough, no excuses. So I should switch over to Vault. And if you check my passive there, I'm using Brooding and Sharpshoot. Of course, Tactical is a passive you want to use against anybody, but the reason why I'm using Brooding is because I don't want him to like how should I describe? I don't want him to like poke away at me little by little and I lose little by little HP and he can just wear me down like that if I don't have any HP regen. So that's why I use Brooding, just to pretty much negate the non-crit haunts, and as well if I want to run away I need some source of healing other than pots and preparation. So I really prefer the Brooding, mostly because my main HP doesn't have HP regen. I would say ideally against the Witch Doctor, the perfect gear would have HP regen, but yeah, I don't expect anyone to have perfect gear, and that's why I use this passive to accommodate that. If you did have the HP regen, maybe I would recommend Perfectionist instead against high DPS Witch Doctors, and Archery against low EHP but high DPS Witch Doctors. Now, another thing that I use here is I use the smokescreen, no, not smokescreen, sorry, I use the Fan of Knives with the Fan of Daggers rune, and if you notice in my previous videos against Witch Doctors, I actually used Hail of Knives instead. And the reason why I switched to the stun rune, even though it misses more frequently, is because of the passive actually, because I use Brooding now. In my previous videos, instead of Brooding, I used to use Thrill of the Hunt, but I realized that if a Witch Doctor has enough EHP, and if a Witch Doctor is able to prolong a duel, then you kind of want longer term, I don't know what to call it, sustainability or whatever, something to keep you alive for a long time. So that's why I use Fan of Daggers instead. It has a shorter range, so the thing there is that you have to be a little bit more careful when you engage. You have to be closer to the Witch Doctor than usual. So that actually allows them to use a skill called Fire Bats, and Fire Bats is actually really good against Demon Hunters. And I don't know, maybe enough Witch Doctors don't use Fire Bats. I would recommend that a Witch Doctor would use Fire Bats. I know he's using Gargantuan and pets. I mean, I haven't tested this enough, but maybe dropping Gargantuan might be worth it for Fire Bats. I don't know exactly what his six skills are, what he's occupying his six skill slots with right now, but I know for sure that Fire Bats hurt a lot from my experience against Chuck Norris and some other witch doctors, but they weren't as geared as him, so they weren't able to kind of kill me. Here he got me again. I tried to kill him. I got a bit greedy, but if you notice, my prep is up. I should have used prep. I shouldn't have died there, but whatever. A death is a death. Gotta accept it. And it's 3-2 for him. For me, sorry, for me. 3-2. So that's why I use Fan of Daggers. And he should... And here he actually switches build. He uses Spirit Barrage now. And I think Spirit Barrage is really, really good against Demon Hunters. He should have used Spirit Barrage from the beginning, to be honest. Because, well, I got the kill here because he was low from the beginning of the duel. And we actually agreed to not leave the arena unless we're swapping skills. So the only way you could leave the arena is if you're full HP. And in that case, yeah, sure, why not just swap skills? But otherwise, we're not allowed to leave the arena. Just based off what we agreed on for our duel. So yeah, I think Spirit Barrage, his Spirit Barrage at 150k DPS versus my 400 all resist and 4k armor, he would do about I'm trying to think, about 60 to 70,000 damage. So just to give you guys a quick reference, that a 300k DPS Witch Doctor would not almost, but would probably one-shot me. But the problem with that is that they're really squishy, and if a Witch Doctor is really squishy, then you just gotta go long distance against them. You gotta use Impale over Penetration instead of Chemical. What is that? Chemical Burn. And instead of Fan of Knives, just use the Healing Turret or something. Or yeah, Healing Turret is what I usually use against them. Against those really high DPS but low EHP, because even if they have say 90k HP, not EHP, but 90k HP and like 300k DPS, that's two crit impales, and they're going to die. I mean, that's why you have to be. That's why it's so hard to think of a build that works against every single Witch Doctor, because it really depends on how much EHP they have and how much DPS they have. So that's also the reason why I switched my build a few times in this duel. So not Haunt, but Spirit Barrage is definitely the way to go here. I do use this Evasive Fire rune. I don't know, some people use Hungering Arrow, but I still like Evasive Fire, just because it's instant damage and it hits at least 3 targets. So if it hits 3 targets, it will probably hit him or 3 of his dogs. So usually he is one of the targets with 2 other dogs. So here he is really low HP, but I'm hesitant to engage because I don't have any cooldowns and I'm low HP. And I haven't been keeping track of Spirit Vessel at this point, so it's really a huge gamble if I engage. So I'm willing to just wait for me to heal up, and now that I have prep, I'm able to engage again and fight him. So that's exactly what I do, and his Spirit Vessel might have came up, and if you saw that crit there, that Spirit Barrage took about 70 to 80,000 health off of my Demon Hunter. Maybe a bit less than that, but yeah, here I got caught, and this is an example of what you should not do when your cooldowns are down. I didn't have prep, I didn't have pot. You should just try to get away from them as far as possible. So it's 6-3 right now. I'm in the lead, but I don't know. It's tricky fighting against witch doctors at least, and especially against very smart ones. It's very tricky. One thing that he does is that actually one thing that you could take advantage of witch doctors is when they're moving forward, um, they're in front, their dogs are in the back. So that means when they move forward, they're actually a clear target for you. So this corridor that I'm in now is where you should be, and if he's chasing you from the top going downwards, you should just throw a few impales going forward, and you're going to hit him if he's in front of his dogs. Which, if he's chasing you, he's going to be in front of your dogs. So, just a little detail that would kind of help you get a few more shots off on the witch doctor as opposed to none, I guess. So here I caught him. Actually, I haven't, not yet. He's really low HP. I can't get greedy because, again, I'm low HP again. I'm waiting for my prep. And here is a dangerous time because I actually should not engage with half HP because a crit Spirit Barrage would kill me at this point. So that was a risk that I took that I should not have taken. Another thing that you could do is that you could kind of bait a Spirit Walk before you engage. So to do that, you would smokescreen on his screen, but what you do is instead of engaging him, you make sure he hears the smokescreen on a screen, right? And then if he hears the smokescreen on his screen, he's going to kind of try to preemptively Spirit Walk before seeing you, because he doesn't want to take a crit Fan of Knives. He knows that when your sharpshoot is up and you haven't engaged in a while, your Fan of Knives is going to crit him pretty hard. And as a witch doctor, what you would ideally want to do is you would want to predict when the demon hunter is going to come in for a Fan of Knives, and you want to preemptively what do you want to preemptively what is that called? Spirit Walk. You want to preemptively Spirit Walk, right? But as a demon hunter, your goal would be to kind of bait a Spirit Walk. So here I died again, and my prep was up again, which was it's a clear example of why you should not engage a witch doctor unless you're over 75% HP, because the crit Spirit Barrages just hurt too much for you to engage when you're not full HP. I think the score at this point was 7-3, and he switched back to Leaping Spiders again. So he switched out Spirit Barrage for Leaping Spiders, which in my opinion is a mistake, because I think Spirit Barrage is the best against Demon Hunters, especially if you have the Haunt rune that lasts really long, and the Spirit Barrage, which has potential to almost one-shot a Demon Hunter, depending on, well, of course, your EHP and their DPS and all that stuff. But so here was the last kill, I believe, and it was 8-4, and at this point we kind of decided to stop, and 8-4 was the final score. So good game, Pillz. Thanks for watching the video, and hopefully you guys got something out of it, and see you guys next time.